Hey y'all, I am coming on camera so that I can record this video finally. I've been trying to record this video for probably like 2 or 3 months now and trying to get my angles all right. So it's my first video, so we're just gonna go with it. If I had to title this video, it would be Trust the Process. And in me telling this story, my prayer is that you will find encouragement through your process, and that you will be blessed, you know, with me sharing, and that it would be helpful in some shape or fashion to you. So, I want to tell you something about trusting God. Sometimes the process will confuse you before it confirms you. I have been through a couple of processes, but right now I'm just going to talk about this one process that I have learned to trust God. So, when I was about 8 years old, I began having my cycle. And consistently, my cycle came until I was about 10, and it didn't come anymore. And I can remember throughout my teenage and young adult years, my cycle had been very irregular most of my life. I would not have a period for like 2 years, and then have a period, and then not have another one. And it could be pretty scary. When I was 16, the doctors had begun putting me like on birth control pills and stuff like that to try to regulate my cycle. And it regulated until I was off the pills, and then there was nothing else happening. And throughout that time, I remember when I was about 11, praying and asking God to allow me to be able to have children. And I remember every time we took communion and we broke the wafer and I drank that juice, I would pray and I would ask God to please allow me to be able to have kids. I remember that so vividly, asking God all the time, like, Lord, please let me be able to have children, because I wanted to be a mom. And because my cycle had been so irregular, there really wasn't evidence that I could have children. Most of the conversation was around it being hard, or if I was going to be able to have them at all. And so for me, at that time, the only thing I knew how to do was pray. I come from a Christian home, and so we prayed. So as I was saying before, like, the doctors could not really explain to me why my cycle hadn't come for so long, and how it, why it would skip every other year and things like that. And at first they tried to say it was my weight, and then, a multitude of things they were trying to say. But I remember trusting and believing that God was a healer. And I knew from a very young age that God was the one who created me. And so I'll tell you this one particular story. When I was about 24, my cycle came for like 42 days. And that was during that time is when they were really trying to say that I had either a hormone deficiency or PCOS or something. And those tests came back normal. My hormones were normal. I didn't have PCOS. I didn't have fibroids or any of those things that they were trying to say that I had. So I remember having this conversation when I was at home by myself in my hallway. And I was like, you know what, God? You created my body. So whatever is happening, my body, you know what's going on. In my body, you know what's going on. And I was like, so whatever it is, you are in control of it. That's pretty much how I summed up the prayer. And I went on about my day. So they had given me like some pills and stuff to take, and I took them, and to try to stop the bleeding. And I can't remember if it worked or not, but it didn't regulate my cycle or my the consistency of my cycle. So years passed, and I remember having this conversation with God, and just kind of saying, I'm a wife, because I knew I had the qualities of a wife and not a baby mama. And I think for the most part I was saying that to remind myself not to sell myself short, and that I am a daughter of the King, and just to continue to have hope, I think, in the process, because I really did want to be a mom. So I never let go of that, the idea of becoming a mom and being able to carry children in my womb. So fast forward, I meet my husband, and we get engaged. And one day I remember praying, like, Lord, how will I know when I'm pregnant? At that time, I still wasn't regular with my cycle. And I remember I prayed that prayer. I had a few ideas in my mind, like, is he gonna know first? Am I gonna know? Am I gonna be one of those people who just like go to the ER for stomach pains and then boom, oh, you come back with a baby? I wasn't sure like how any of it was gonna happen, and so I was just like, okay. I remember saying that prayer and then leaving it alone, and not really going into depth with him, or it wasn't like a I wasn't crying. I mean, it was like a simple prayer. It was like just simple question I asked God. And funny enough, how God works, which is mind-blowing, because he knows how to drop something just enough to make impact. And in that impact, it's God, right? So right before the wedding, something shifted. My cycle came, so I was to get married in September, when we planned our wedding. So in August, my cycle came, totally unexpected. And then it kept coming. Month after month, something was aligning, right? So every month my cycle came, rain or shine. It didn't skip a beat. I mean, it was the strangest thing that every month I had a cycle, rain or shine. It didn't matter my weight, because at first they would tell me, oh, you're too heavy or you're too skinny or whatever, and my weight fluctuated. Even then, my cycle came regularly. It didn't change. It was the strangest thing to me, but now it was such a blessing, right? And it was God really being faithful in that time. My husband and I decided, let's wait 2 years after we get married to buy a house, and then after we buy a house, then we can think about having kids. We bought our house in 2015, and by 2016, we was having us a baby. So it was so crazy, because my cycle didn't come that month, and I had not. And even up until most recently, I didn't miss a cycle. And the only time I did miss a cycle, I was pregnant. So I had suspicions that I was pregnant because my cycle didn't come, but I wasn't really sure. And so I was just like, well, I don't know if it's my body reverting back to the way, whatever was going on before, if I was still having that same issue. So then I go to lunch with my best friend, and we talking, having a good time and laughing and all the things. And then we were getting ready to leave, and I was going home. She comes to me and she's like, I need to pray over your womb. I don't quite remember the conversation we were having just before that, but I'm like, okay. And so without hesitation, she began to pray, and she began to command life over my womb. And she didn't even know that I was pregnant, but God had already placed the promise in her spirit. So 2 weeks later, I take the pregnancy test, and it confirms what I suspected. So I'm pregnant. So then we are excited. We waited, the 13 weeks or whatever we're supposed to wait before you tell people that you're having a baby. I waited the time, and then we announced that we were having a baby. So I'm about 5 months pregnant, and my husband and I would go to the store to have to get stuff for for the house for the week or whatever. Sorry, I was a little distracted. So we go to the store, and I'm waiting on him to come and bring the car. And as we're loading, he was putting something in the car, and I just picked up the case of water and put it in the trunk. I didn't think anything of it. We get home, we're unloading the car. I don't feel bad. My body doesn't feel any different. Nothing happened. Nothing is like changing that I can tell, right, on the ride home or anything. So we're unloading the car, and I take the last bag in the car, from the car to the house. And he's like, "What's going on in the back of your clothes?" So I look in the mirror. All I see is red. So I'm like tripping out, like, oh my God. So I call my best friend. I change my clothes, take a shower, and then we get in the car. We're on our way to the hospital, and I'm telling my best friend, like, you gotta pray, you gotta pray, you gotta pray, because you know something's happening. My pants are all red, blah blah whatever. And so she's like, okay. But remind you, she had already prayed, right, 6 months ago, and about life being in my womb. And I'm praying, and I'm like, God, please don't take my baby, please don't take my baby. And we get to the hospital. My husband prays. We get to the hospital. We do the ultrasound and all the things, and the doctor comes in to give us the results of the ultrasound. So she shows us, the footage of the ultrasound and everything, and the baby is just moving around. She was like, well, I'm not sure what was happening, but the baby is fine. There is no signs of distress from the baby. Your womb is completely intact. And so it was a threatened miscarriage, but everything is fine, right? And so I was like, wow, like it kind of blew my mind. It was like my body, what was happening on the inside and what was going on was a contradiction. I mean, like the whole thing, right? You would think if somebody doesn't have a cycle, consistent cycle, or have them for years, something's going on with the plumbing, is what they say, right? And then, like clockwork, it starts to line up. Like, that is not an explainable thing that I or any doctors have been able to articulate. And it was the timing that really made it just such a miracle, I guess is what you would call it. But the timing was just like perfect. It was everything. And it really spoke and allowed me to understand that God is really in control. He is in control of my life, and that he was working it out for my good. So we go back home. Long story short, we have a baby. But his hand was on me the whole time. In my pregnancy, the timing as to when I got pregnant, all of these things. And so my baby was healthy. Everything was fine with her. My labor was normal. It was just, all of that was great, and finally, the thing that I had been praying about, I got to hold her in my arms. I got to feed her and take care of her. And I, genuinely just cherish all of those things about each one of my kids. I have 3. Well, we have 3. And she's such a blessing. But every time I see them, I remember when I was 11 years old praying and asking God to allow me to birth children. And I see them in their brilliance and in their the greatness that's on them, and just being able to watch them grow up is just an amazing thing. And I say all that to say that I learned how to trust the process. And for me, that's in my situation, that's what trusting the process looked like for me. It was some mountaintops, there were some valleys, there were some places in the middle, you know, because trusting God in the process does not always come with clarity, but it always comes with covering. So even if you don't see movement, God is organizing the outcome. Even when your body is quiet, the Spirit is always speaking. So I encourage you today, in case you needed some encouragement, to keep trusting, keep praying, keep declaring, because God does not waste process. He prepares a promise. So if I could be anything, let me be my encouragement to you. What God promises, He will deliver.